China mines 60% of rare earths, but controls 90%. Here's how. Look at this supply chain. 6 links, mine to magnet. Only one of them glows. That one link is where the power lives. Not the mine, not the ground. That single stage in the middle. And almost no one outside one country can do it. Here's the gap that shouldn't make sense. China digs about 60% of the world's magnet rare earths out of the ground. 60. That's a lot, but it isn't a monopoly. Plenty of countries have the rocks. The United States has them. Australia has them. Brazil is sitting on the second largest reserves on Earth. So why does China control more than 90% of what actually matters? Because mining was never the hard part. The hard part is what happens after. Let's slow down. When people hear rare earths, they picture something scarce, a precious vein deep in a mountain, fought over like gold. But that picture is wrong, and the wrong picture is exactly why this story stays hidden. Rare earths aren't rare. Neodymium, the one that makes the magnet in your phone's speaker, your earbuds, your hard drive, the motor in an electric car, is more common in the Earth's crust than gold or silver, much more common. The rare isn't about how much exists, it's about how hard it is to pull the useful part out of the rock. Because these 17 metals don't come in neat separate deposits. They come tangled together, chemically almost identical, buried in the same ore, and often mixed in with faintly radioactive material. To turn a lump of that ore into the pure single element a factory can actually use, you have to separate elements that barely want to be separated. It takes hundreds of chemical steps, enormous facilities, toxic waste you have to manage, decades of accumulated know-how that isn't written in any textbook. That middle stage has a name, refining and separation, and that is the link that glows. So watch what happens when you follow the chain instead of just staring at the mine. A country digs up the ore, fine, but then where does that ore go to be turned into something usable? For most of the world, the answer is the same place. It goes to China. Even ore mined in America has, at times, been shipped across the Pacific to be processed because the plants to do it here barely existed. 60% of the mining, above 90% of the refining. And it gets sharper. When you get to the final step, turning those refined metals into the actual finished magnets that go inside your devices, China's share climbs to nearly 95%. 2 decades ago, it was only about half. This gap was built. So how did one country come to own the one stage everyone depends on? For that, you have to go back. In 1992, China's leader Deng Xiaoping toured the south of the country and set a line that gets quoted to this day. "The Middle East has oil," he said. "China has rare earths." He wasn't describing the present. He was describing a plan. Over the next 30 years, China did something the rest of the world didn't bother to do. It didn't just mine more, it invested relentlessly in the ugly, unglamorous, unprofitable middle of the chain. The refining, the separation, the magnet making. It flooded the market with cheap output and drove competitors out of business. Refineries in America and Europe couldn't compete on price and shut down. And once they were gone, the skills went with them. The chemists retired. The plants rusted. The knowledge quietly left the building. By the time the rest of the world looked up, it wasn't holding the ore that mattered. It was holding the one thing that didn't. Now here's the part that turns a supply chain into a weapon. If you control the stage everyone else needs, you don't need to own their mines. You don't need an army near their borders. You just need a form, a license, permission to export. In 2010, a fishing boat collision near disputed islands set off a dispute between China and Japan. Within days, Japan found its supply of rare earths from China mysteriously slowing to a trickle. Japan built cars. Cars need these magnets. The message didn't need to be spoken. Japan spent the next years and billions of dollars scrambling to cut its dependence, investing in a mine and refinery in Australia and Malaysia, building stockpiles, funding recycling. And then, in 2025, it happened again, but bigger. China rolled out sweeping new export controls, not just on the metals, but on the equipment and the technology used to refine them. To ship certain products, foreign companies suddenly needed a Chinese license, even if the factory sat on the other side of the world. Manufacturers outside China scrambled. Some had to slow production. The flows recovered eventually, but everyone had felt the hand on the valve. No shots, no tanks, just a stage in the middle of a supply chain and the power to say, "Not today." Here's Pip's take. We keep looking for power in the obvious place. Who owns the resource? Who holds the territory? Who has the biggest pile of the raw stuff? But real leverage almost never sits where the resource comes out of the ground. It sits at the choke point that everything has to pass through. China's grip on rare earths was never really about Chinese soil. It was about a decision made patiently over 30 years to own the hardest, dirtiest, least glamorous step, the one everybody needs and nobody wanted. The mine is visible, so we watch the mine. The control was always one link downstream, in the part of the chain we were trained not to look at. Find the stage that's hard to replace, and you've found who's really in charge. If you like pulling apart the world to find the why behind the what, the hidden link that actually explains the whole chain, subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep digging. So next time someone tells you a country is powerful because of what's buried under its land, ask the better question, not what they dig up, what they can do to it that no one else can. That's where the power was hiding the whole time. One link down, glowing, while everyone stared at the mine.